Okay, so today I want to show you how to make a animated click button that might appear inside your animated web banner. Here's an example right here. I have this inside Photoshop right now. If I actually go ahead and play this, play it from the beginning, you can see that I have the words flashing on and off. The button stays there behind the words, and as you see, as the time plays, the coloration changes slightly inside the button. You'll also notice if I zoom in a little bit more, but you'll see I have a slight glow starting to appear around the box and then disappear again. So I'm using this to actually attract the attention of the viewer to want to actually click on this web banner and actually go and visit the website. So this is something that you can make either in your actual web banner, or you can go ahead and make it separate in a separate file. Just be aware of the size of the actual button you're making. Obviously, you don't want to make it too large. If anything, go back and look at the size of your web banner that you had started to create and either deal with the same height or the same width, depending on which one it corresponds to. But you should have something roughly about 100 pixels high, maybe. Probably nothing wider than about 300 or 400 pixels in width. So if I go ahead and actually go ahead and create one, I've got one that's 300 pixels wide, 100 pixels high, again 100 pixels per inch. The first thing I can actually go do is make the actual button shape. And I do not want to work all the way up to the edge of my actual canvas. I actually want to give myself a little bit of room for the outline stroke and also the glow around the outside. The tool I'm going to have you use is right at the bottom near the hand right here. And you might see a variety of different shape tools. You might just see the rectangle to begin with. But to get more of a button shape, I don't want the sharp cornered edges right here. I actually want the rounded rectangle, so I'm actually going to get that nice soft rounded corner. And then I can actually click and drag. This is something that is obviously very similar in Illustrator, and it's just making very basic shapes. So as I click, that's made that shape. Again, be aware of the fact that we're working in relatively low resolution for web. It doesn't matter what color this is because we're actually going to be animating the style or the layer style. So I actually want to move over to my layer, and I want to title this button, and then I'm going to double click on the layer to bring up the layer style. This is the part that you're going to want to pay the most amount of attention to. You could put on a variety of different styles. You don't want to overdo it, but one of the first ones you could do would be stroke. With the stroke, you have the option of having just a solid color, or you can actually work with a gradient right here. So if I went and chose gradient, I could go change this. Let's go put it on so it's extremely colorful. And then I can change the width of that stroke so you can get this nice kind of outside outline around it. Color overlay would be another option, but I'm going to go, because I started with a gradient, I'm going to finish with one, so I'm going to go ahead and put a gradient in there too. And I'm going to match that same exact gradient right here with these bright orange and yellow colors. Okay, I could go ahead and put in a shadow, which kind of gives it kind of a recessed kind of look to it. If I didn't want the black, I can obviously go change that color. I could go choose a color from here. There we go. So I could go choose a dark orange to give it a little bit more of a more depth to it. I can change the distance on that if I wish. I can also change how dark it actually is. So you can see I can add multiple things. I could add like a bevel to it. A bevel gives it kind of a more of a three-dimensional appearance to it. Again, I could change the actual color. So I could actually use just darker versions of the orange instead of just using black. And that way I've actually got more of a button. So I can increase that if I wish to actually give it more of a button look. So that's the initial button setup. I could change a lot of other things. I could change the angle of the gradients too. And then I want to go ahead and actually get some text over the top of that. So I'm going to go ahead and type in click here. I'm going to go change the color of that to white. And then I'm going to go put some layer styles on this also. And that way I can actually change the way that the text looks as well. So I can go ahead and maybe put a drop shadow on there to be able to see it a little more clearly. I could do a color overlay, and I'll come back and use that maybe in a little bit to change the appearance of that. But that kind of makes it relatively easy to see. So let's actually get started with the animation part of it. If I go ahead and create a video timeline, you can see here I've actually got the button down here, and it shows up as black because I've got layer styles over the top. And that's exactly what I need to actually go ahead and animate. I don't need to do anything other than just animate the style. So I'm going to go ahead and drop in a keyframe right there at the beginning. And I want to make this whole button no longer than 2 seconds. The whole thing is going to be at the end of your web banner, so there's no point in actually making this any longer than 2 seconds. So make sure that this reaches all the way out to 1 and then 2 seconds. And I'm wanting to actually make a considerable change throughout this, so I could do it a change in something every 10 frames, so that's 1/3 of a second. So it's actually going to be happening relatively quickly. So if I now come back to my layers and double click, I can actually go change my stroke, and I could go move the actual points of the gradient around so they're actually sitting in a different position. So now they've actually changed their positions, and hit OK. Go do the same for the gradient in the actual fill too, and so I could grab this and actually pull the color somewhere else. So the location has changed. And then I could go ahead and even add an outer glow to that and intensify the color, so I could actually kind of get a kind of a bright yellow. So I can actually get this showing up. So you can see I've got a large glow on there. So I could actually take it off and bring it down a little bit. There is a slight glow around it. Okay, so this will actually look like it's flashing. When I hit OK, you can see that it's recorded another keyframe point right there, and that's because I've changed the style. So I'm going to move back along the line a little bit longer, and now I'm at 20 frames into this animation. I'm going to go back into my style again, go back to stroke, and bring that original sort of position back again. So it's sort of changing back and forth between the two. And do the same for the gradient fill as well. So I'm just going to drag this back and pull the yellow back into the middle again, so it's back to its original spot. Hit OK, and then I can actually go turn off outer glow, so it's actually not glowing for a second, and then hit OK. And then I'm going to move it along again, and now I'm at my first second. So I can go back and continue doing this. So I can now push it the other way. So I'm now having it go down this way and bringing the yellow out that way. I can then go over my gradient and do the same on this one. So last time I pushed the yellow to the right, now I'm pushing it to the left and moving it this way. Okay, and then I'm going to move a couple more times and continue to do this. I'm going to bring this back again to its original state that it was at the beginning, and you could easily just go choose the same gradient again if you wish, and then do the same for the fill. So I could just go click and it would take it back to its original spot. If I wished, I could take the inner shadow and I could change its location, so it's actually switching its appearance if I wanted to, and do that also. And then I'm going to do one more change and then finish up. So I can change this, so I'm going to drag it all the way out again. And then the gradient too. So I'm making multiple changes to my actual button, and that way it'll actually give it the appearance as if it's actually flashing as it plays along. Go back to my inner shadow and change that back to its original location. Up to 2 seconds, and then go change it one more time back to how it was. So back to its original appearance, and that way it loops around seamlessly at the end, hopefully. Okay, so if I go back and actually just test this animation out, you can see the button is just changing its appearance attracting the viewer to actually look at it. So that's the actual button in the background constantly working that way. If I now go and actually kind of collapse that for a second so I don't pay attention to it, and I'm now going to work on the word click here. If I go do the same on style, and I want to change it throughout this as it goes along. So I was working on every 10 frames per second, and I'm going to go ahead and actually do something that we haven't used just yet, but this is actually using the little scissor icon right here, and this actually splits this one piece of text into two pieces. So if I actually just move my time frame bar along to a certain point, so that's at 10 frames, so that'll be the same time in which the button actually changes its appearance. I could actually slice, and you'll see that it's actually separated the two objects into two, or separated the first layer into two objects. Then I can actually go click the top one and actually separate that away. So it's actually provided a gap enough to that it will actually turn on and turn off again. And then I can move along 10 frames, hit the click, and do it again. Click that upper one, and separate it from the original. Move along to the point that I want to cut it, so you can see every 10 frames I'm doing this, and then I can slice it again. Click on the upper layer, move it 5 frames, and this one I actually just want to keep on for 10 frames right here, and then have 5 frames off, because then it's going to loop back around again to this one at the bottom. So I just need it 4 times. Now I initially put a style on this, so I can go back to that style, click right here, and then on my layers I could go ahead and put in a different gradient maybe. I could put on that same one, or I could go ahead and just put a little bit of color of some kind that would attract the attention of the viewer. And that way, when I played it, it would change its appearance also. Okay, so as I can go through, you can see I've now created a split between these 4 pieces of text. I've got the button, and then I've got layer styles that could appear over the top. So if I just play that real quick, it's going to flash on, flash off. And you don't have to have the words click here. You could obviously change it. There was the change in the actual coloration at the end. Okay, so you could have different words being placed in here in place of the words click here if you wish. Now, as far as now what you can do with this, you could select all the layers, and as long as you made the button the right size, you could just transfer it over. A cleaner way of doing it might be that I actually export it as an actual object and then bring that into my actual web banner. If I'm going to do that, I want to remove my background. So I'm going to double click, and this activates the background into an actual layer, and then I can delete it. And that gives me that transparent appearance right here. Okay. Then what I need to do is actually export this as an actual movie clip, and then place that movie clip into my actual web banner. If you look all the way down to the bottom left hand corner, you will see this little button, and this will actually render the video. So if I click that real quick, this should actually bring up this render video, and from here we want to go and select under format, we want to go choose QuickTime, and also under render options right down here under the alpha channel we want to choose straight or unmatted right here. And the reason for that is we want to actually use this transparent appearance in our video so that we can place it over the top. So don't forget to actually choose straight, unmatted, and QuickTime movie. And then we can actually go ahead and provide a title. So I could just title it button and click render. Change it to a different title because I've already got the other one open. So I'm going to render that. And this will actually export it as a movie. And then if I come back into my actual web banner that I've been creating, I can come down to File, choose Place, and I can go find that button. There it is right there, button2.movie, and that's the QuickTime movie right there. So you can see if I place that in there, that will actually place wherever my timeline bar is actually situated, and there's the button right there. So I'm going to press return to actually apply it, and then I can move it into position as to where I want it, and I can also move it around in the timeline. But if I actually press play, you will see that it starts to appear. So as I actually get to the end of my, that's the other one I've got. But as I get to the end of my actual button, then I could actually place this where I wish. So I could pick up this button that I have right here and move it anywhere along in my timeline bar. And it's nice and clean and finished because there's not 7 or 8 different layers going on of buttons and background objects. It's just one video object that animates as it plays through the timeline. So give that a shot, give it a try, see if you actually manage to create it, see if you can get it to play for roughly about 2 seconds at the end, and place it into your web banner for the final stage. Good luck.